for Ben News. We're bringing you the latest news from right across the globe. We're bringing you the latest news from the UK and Africa.
Welcome to Ben Television, live from London. My name is Kayode Ogundamisi, and this is your program, Politics with KO. And tonight, we're doing something different. Back in Africa, when they tell us when we're young, they say to us, you need to grow old. When you're going to grow old, you need to start saving for the rainy days, they say. And that scheme has been on for ages, where the young put some money aside, hoping that when they grow old, they've got something to fall back. And it's called the pension scheme. But things have changed. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the big scam in Nigeria called the big, huge pension scam. And a young lady, a young Nigerian, has done a documentary that sort of brings everything together in a short clip of about 25 minutes. And on Ben TV, we're going to show a full program on that clip that is made by Enoma Shibo. But tonight, we'll let you have a feel of some of the things she's highlighted on that clip relating to the pension scam in Nigeria. So just stay back, because I'm going to have with me in the studio a UK-based analyst, a business advisor, Victoria, and she's going to give us a UK perspective as to what a pension is, how things work in so-called sane society. And next week, we're going to have a full live program where we'll take your phone calls and would have you discuss this issue, because I think our elderly are just being maltreated. So first, let's present to you the Dead Wood, as made by Enoma Shibo.
He will also grow old someday. Should an elected governor utter such an ignorant and callous statement? He said, if they do not have children who can feed them, they should go home and die. He was referring to us, the retired civil servants, who assembled at government sub-treasuries once a month to collect our pensions and, almost equally important, see old friends. This exercise over time proved to be more destructive than alleviating. What with unending tales of woe and the inhuman treatment meted out to people who had contributed significantly to the nation's development. Many did die while waiting for payment of pension and gratuity. Some others did not wait to get home. At least one, to my knowledge, collapsed and died in the treasury premises while waiting for his turn to collect his pension, when such payments were made in cash.
What happened now? What are you talking about?
I saw the body.
I am an old woman trying very hard to survive in the midst of the hustle and bustle of the younger generation. Indeed, it is very difficult. I am 105 years old. Yes, I have outlived my husband and children. My grandchildren have no time for me. They have written me off as that crazy old woman. So, what do I do now? Can I go back to my village? Of course not. I may be old, but I am certainly not stupid. Do they realize that I am aware of the things they say behind my back? That witch that has eaten her husband and children. Have you ever heard of anything so bizarre? I am way too intelligent to waste away amid people with such small minds. I need a place to stay. Can someone out there help me, please? Yes, indeed, you can. I appeal to you, children of the younger generation. You are young and you are strong. You can build a place for people like me where we can congregate, reminisce, and not feel so old anymore.
I don't know if that did not move you, then you're made of steel, or probably more than steel. To put this in perspective, let's look at it this way. A former director of pension administration in the office of the head of civil service in Nigeria, Mr. Abdullahi, was found to have corruptly enriched himself, literally just stole money belonging to the people. And that is the result of what we have. You know, people dying on queue lines, elderly people. Haruna Magiji, a.k.a. Danjuma Bakowa, was a confidential secretary to the former director of pension admin, Luke Eboanyi, Aliu Bello. They recruited members from all parts of the country, and they stole 151 billion naira pension money meant for the elderly. We also had 20 billion naira police pension scam that was involving Mrs. Atang, a former chief accountant in the police pension office, and 5 others, including our own daughter and Atiku Abubakar Kigo. Endless. You have another pension scam, Mena case. We all remember Mena. Mena was accused of mopping up the pension funds from banks and depositing the same thing in his bank account. Not just that, he brought several millions of naira, running into billions in naira, to the United Kingdom. And that is where we are now. The result of it is that we got elderly people, you know, just dying, waiting for the money they worked for. Well, the good news is we have Dr. Gilbert Shigbo. You saw him in that short clip, and he's in Enugu, Nigeria. And we're going to have him on this program to just tell us his experience. Dr. Shigbo, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. First, I just want you to tell our viewers, do you mind telling us how old you are now?
Any more? What?
I just want to know if you're, we want to know your age. We want to put things in perspective. We want our viewers to know your age.
78 yesterday.
78. Thank God for your life. You had a birthday yesterday. Sir, can you tell us your experience as a pensioner in Nigeria?
It is stressful. Absolutely stressful. Can you imagine a pensioner over 60, unable to go home,
Yeah.
pick up come back the following day, collect his cash, pension as cash. Why not? In the event, he was given some little money for bus fare, and on leaving the sub-treasury, his head was so poor at 4 o'clock in the evening that he hit his head against the wall and fell.
Now, you've served our country, you've served the country for a while. How does it feel that after all this long year of service, and I know there are millions of people, in your position, they've got no voice, and you've served the country, how does it feel that the country you've served so well will be treating pensioners in such manner, just stealing their money and leaving them to wallow in poverty?
One gets worried at the fact that there's no feeling of compassion among our leaders, among our bureaucrats. Absolutely no compassion whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. We want to thank you because we wouldn't want to have you so long. We know it's bedtime in Nigeria now, and we want to thank you for coming on the program. And we wish you well, and we hope things would get turned around in our country, where we would have respect for the elderly, those who have suffered for our country. I've got with me in the studio Victoria Walker, and in Nigeria, Enoma Shibo, the filmmaker, is going to join us too on the line from Enugu, Nigeria. Victoria, you saw that clip. How did it feel?
I found it quite disturbing to watch because I feel that it's important for any government or economy to support their elderly, especially if they've contributed to the environment and to the economy. Yeah. I feel that it's such a key part for governments to make sure they take care of the elderly because they can't work anymore and they have contributed to the society. So yes, I think it's really disturbing, and I'm quite concerned about what actions are going to be taken to make sure that the people are compensated and can get the money that they deserve and what they need to live off.
Okay. I've got Enoma. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hi, Kayode.
Hi, how are you? Enoma, it's actually, look, I should first thank you for the effort in putting the documentary together, because now we have filmmakers producing musical videos about women dancing, but you've taken a very important issue and you've translated it into a fantastic documentary. What influenced you making the documentary, The Dead Wood?
It was just something that fell into my hands, just like that. I didn't even know. My father had written a newspaper article, he had written an article, Pensioners at Deadwood. He wrote it in 2010, and I got it published. And as he started to tell me stories, the idea of having a docudrama came up. So what I did was merge the stories he told me with the newspaper article, and that was the birth of the Deadwood docudrama. It happened just like that. I didn't plan to, but it just happened.
Yeah, and it's such a powerful tool. And I just want to ask Victoria in the studio now, what is you're a financial analyst and you work in London, and what is a pension scheme really?
So a pension scheme is where somebody can contribute, especially when they're sort of earlier on in their career, they can contribute money to save for their retirement. And the money is sort of put into a big pot and is invested into various funds. So that's in effect what a pension scheme does. And when the person finishes work, I think age of retirement, in this country has gone up to 67, 68. And basically, yeah, when you retire, you get some money back that you can live off.
Now, in Nigeria, pension scheme means you put money in the pot from the elderly, and then some few officials will just take it away, put it in banks in any part of the world. If that should happen in the UK, what would happen? Like, I can't imagine my money I'm contributing to my NI contribution is just freighted away to another country. What is going to happen if such scams should happen in this country?
I couldn't imagine what would happen. I think it would be sort of all-out anarchy. The people wouldn't have it. I mean, we're meant to live in a democracy in this country, and, what's fair is fair. What's right is right. And I think in this country, England is built on a kind of bureaucratic system. So we have kind of rules and regulations that everyone has to adhere to, and it's meant to be fair, and that's how we keep the peace, and we do things, you know, which are equal and fair rights to everybody. And I think that's something that Nigeria has to start looking at, because what they're doing is destroying their country. You know, if you can't look after the elderly and simply keep pensions that people have contributed to for that purpose, then there's little hope for real sort of building the country properly. So.
Now, Enuma, when you're making this research into making the Deadwood, you know, what were the astonishing things that you were confronted with? I mean, you must have done quite a number of research before you came out with this project.
Okay, I think I lost you a bit. I heard the part of when you were doing the research, but I didn't hear anything else.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what did you come across, you know, in researching towards this project? Did you come across anything that is quite astonishing? Like, did you know that we've had a 5 billion naira pension scam, we've had a 32 billion naira pension scam, we've got a 40 billion naira pension scam, we've got a 150 billion naira pension scam. What challenges did you come across in making this, putting this project together?
Okay, I knew about the pension scam, but truth of the matter is I really didn't want to go into details about that. I was more, for me, it was more the compassion towards the way the people were treated. That was my inspiration, and that was what basically drove me to doing that. And one of the things that just kept going in my mind was, I'm going to be old at some point. I really don't want to slump and die anywhere. I want to be looked after. So it was more, for me, it was more the human side, the human angle, the compassion part that actually got me writing. Now, I have one of the things that I do think about and take quite seriously when there are these scams, because it's not just pension, there's scams all over the place. I try not to pay too much attention to them because I know that deep down, somewhere, it will all be resolved.
Yeah.
Right? So I try not to focus too much on that. Yeah. Because if I did that, it would have actually distracted me from getting the message of compassion out there.
Absolutely. Now, Victoria, you know, this stuff like this just make me, I just get speechless in terms of, I know that we come from a country where corruption seems to be flow from the River Niger to the River Benue and down the line. But the fact that we're treating the elderly in such manner is actually quite annoying. But I do know that in the UK, there's a sort of scam anyway. People investing money into, can you just enlighten us?
Yeah, I mean, there has been issues with the UK pension fund. You know, the subprime market was one prime example. A lot of pension fund money was invested into bad loans and debts, and people lost their money. So they didn't have the retirement fund that they expected to live off. However, they still had something.
Okay, so it wasn't like someone just picked the money, put it in their own private pocket. It was like invested in something that didn't make profits for the people.
Exactly, and I think everybody is quite clear with pension funds that it is money that's going to be invested, and they may not retain the full value, but they're made aware of that. The one thing about the UK pension fund is that a lot of the time they don't know where the pension fund's being invested in, so it can be quite risky in terms of sort of using that as a key asset for retirement.
Okay, Enuma, if you're still with us there, you know, now, what can the filmmakers, producers, music, people who make nice music, what can they do in terms of bringing this campaign to the forefront, you know, the compassionate side? I know we talk about the facts and figures, and these are huge figures, but how can other people do what you're doing now, you know, in terms of highlighting this problem in our society?
I think that the filmmakers should, because a lot of times, to the best of my understanding, since I'm new at filmmaking, a lot of times people go for where they think the money is. So if we can kind of deviate from that and get out the messages, then the money will come.
Yeah.
But I have observed that there's this huge demand or huge need to satisfy the marketers and give them what they want, rather than send the message out there.
Yeah.
So if there can be a shift in the mindset to be able to get out, messages that will make an impact on society, then yes, I think that would actually go a long way.
Okay. Yeah, even as we speak out, my producer, Tony, is going to be putting some facts and figures on the screen for people to see so that you can feel the impact of what we are dealing with. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. When you see these figures and what is happening back home and how we seems to be killing our whole elderly people before their time, then you understand where we're coming from. It's something that we should be talking about, isn't it? Apart from the general attitude of corruption and what have you, what mechanism do we have in place, to stop things like this happening in the UK, Victoria?
Well, I think it goes back to the rules and regulations of how our system's built up. England really do concentrate on their GDP, so they're very a very economic powerhouse, and looking after the elderly is part of looking after the economy, because where are they all going to go? We can't just throw them into, an old people's home. Even if we want to do that, it costs money. So the government understand that, and therefore putting measures in place so that these people can live and die in a nice and peaceful way.
Yeah, okay. Henoma, in Nigeria, I know that in Ekiti State, there's a fund where they're giving, is it 2,000 naira a month to elderly people? What other social help can government give to the elderly, aside stealing what rightly belongs to them?
I know that different states have adopted different strategies. In Cross River State, for one, and that's where I work as a media consultant.
Yeah.
They have different projects like Project Hope and Comfort, which actually puts money in the hands of disabled people and elderly people. Right. There's not that focus on elderly people, but a lot of elderly people fall into that group. And then there's also another project that the wife of the governor does, which is it's called Power, and it's all about empowering women of all ages. So, I'm sure that with that and some other, initiatives, if other people or if other states can adopt policies like that or initiatives like that, which some of them are actually doing, but it's really not out there. If there's that collective effort, then I think that it will make a positive difference.
Okay, I would ask you this. We have the tradition in Africa of looking after our elderly. Forget the issue of pension. As in, if your mom or your dad should grow old, you expect to have them in your compound and take care of them until they are passing. Do we still have that ongoing in the country? Because in the UK, you just send them to the old people's home and then just forget about them.
We do have that, but I think that we should step away from that a bit, right? Because at the moment, having to look after elderly people at home, I mean, the economy is not like it was before, right? But if there's a separate place where they're not necessarily confined to that place, but they can actually mix with their peers, share old stories, have younger people come in and entertain them, all of that would actually work out better than having to constrain them in, or rather having their children look after them. Sometimes their children may not even be able to do that financially. It could happen.
Okay, Victoria, that's someone in Africa saying, look, we should borrow a bit of the system in the UK, because I know, there's, at least from the ethnic minority view, it's like, I don't want to grow old and be in an elderly people's home. I want to go back to Africa, where I'll be very well catered for. Is it a system of care? Yeah, the elderly people at some point would have to, even if they've got a mansion, they get sent to a place where they will be catered for.
Yeah, and I think in this country that's one area where we lack. I personally believe in, when my mom gets old, I'd like to look after her if I can. I think that's, what families should do. Yeah. However, there are circumstances, because we live in an environment where people are quite busy. We work, we have children, we have families. It can be quite difficult, especially if an elderly is ill or sick or has problems which need, that 24/7 or around-the-clock care. So I do think it depends on circumstances. But yeah, in some instances, a care home's good. But I think, I think families should, look after their elderly if the circumstances are right.
Okay. Yeah, and I need to remind our viewers that we're going to have the full documentary shown on Ben TV at some point, and you need to actually see The Dead Wood. Or you just go on YouTube and just type The Dead Wood. Just think about it, and you would be surprised at the kind of the message that is coming out of it, and it's a reflection of what's going on in Nigeria. And I still have with me in Nigeria Enoma Ashibo, who is the filmmaker who made the documentary The Dead Wood. Now, Enoma, what kind of support system do you have in place? Because I don't think this is the kind of documentary that should just be left out there. I mean, it should be on national TV in Nigeria. The message should get into people's homes. Do you have any support from any angle?
Not really. That may largely, for different reasons. Partly our fault, maybe because we're not quite out there as we ought to. But no, we don't. And then, apart from not marketing ourselves enough, there are other issues like, you see, that is not, I've had people tell me, very nice product, but it has no commercial value. I kind of don't agree with that, because I just feel that if you have a strong message, somewhere along the line, it should be able to have that kind of value commercially.
Okay.
So we've been grappling with those two issues.
Okay, we're gonna go for a quick break, and I hope my producer Tony is going to play us some other segment of that powerful clip, The Dead Wood, and because I just want people to get the message. Is the power behind the message? The compassion. We've got to look after our elderly. Yes, there's fraud going on, but you could see the 105-year-old elderly lady saying, look, all we need is your support. We'll take a short break and then we'll come back. Don't go away. This is Ben TV, your program, Politics with KO.
Hey, it's a long time. Oh, what a beautiful day. What a joyful day. I'm so glad you're here. You have really made my day today. Wonderful. I'm happy to hear that you enjoy the food. I spent the whole day cooking for you because it's a while I've cooked for you. Now that I have the opportunity, I am glad you really like it. Isn't it? I am really tired. I need some sleep. I have to go to bed. I am really tired. In as much as I like to talk to you, but really, I am tired.
Ezigbo enyi m Obiageli, ọwụ gị, ele ihe iyi. Echetere m otu anyị na-eji eyi akwa mbọ. Echetere m akwa niile chara ụcha anyị na-eji eyi. Ọkụ ichetere ka ndị mmadụ si akpọ anyị ọmalịcha nwa. Daalụ na nri anyị wetere m. Aga m ahụ gị echi. Ọkwa ịghọtara ife m na-ekwu. Ịma na ahụ adịchara m, mana ọ dị mma. Daalụ.
Companionship, something we, the old and almost forgotten, cherish more than life, as we dread loneliness even more than death. What do our elderly people do? It depends. In pre-colonial days, there were large shade trees and tree stumps where they congregated to pass the day away. They were, of course, no longer capable of the hard physical labor that farming implied.
You're welcome back to Politics with KO, and I've got with me in the studio Victoria Walker, and live from Nigeria I've got Enoma Shibo, the filmmaker and the writer. And I'll just go straight to you, Victoria. How can Nigeria make pension schemes better?
Well, I think they need to rebuild confidence. I definitely think Nigerians really need to focus on protecting their pension funds and putting in measures in place so that this doesn't happen again. I think people are now going to be sort of conscious about whether or not they're going to invest or put money down into state pensions or company pensions after this. So I think they need to look at restoring confidence and also putting in a lot of measures to kind of punish people that are taking this money and bring in some sort of justice, even compensation as well for those who have lost out.
Yeah. Okay, Enoma, if you're still with us, justice, do you think the elderly will ever get justice in the country?
I hope so. I hope so. It might seem like the chances are a little thin, but like I said, if more people can get out these messages, then yes, it should happen. It should. It may not happen immediately, but I believe it will eventually.
You know, Victoria, there was something you did mention that, and I don't know how to do this. Let me give you an example. Here we're in the studio of Ben TV, and Ben TV is donating 1 full hour to Nigerians in diaspora. And every member of the production team are just like volunteering free. They're not paid. And we cannot get people in the country to support a project that is meant to campaign for the old and elderly. It is annoying, you know, and we've got loads of private television stations. We've got the NTA, which is a national television station. How can we get people to just see the good in some projects that are meant for the benefit of others? And you're not making money out of it. You're just trying to voice something that I think needs to be out there. You know, what else can we do to just get others to join you in campaigning for the elderly, or whatever schemes out there that we can bring out to the people?
Well, it's a question I keep asking myself, and I'm not sure I have any answers yet, at least not immediately. It's actually quite nerve-wracking, I know, but truth of the matter is I'm not sure. One can only do what one can do in terms of talking about it, and I'm hoping that, you know, when you talk to communication, you talk to somebody, but somebody talks to somebody else, and then one day it gets into the right ears, and then something happens immediately.
Yeah, okay, let's hope something is going to happen after this program, because I really want our followers on Twitter. We've got over 40,000 people on Twitter. You need to tweet this message about the pension scam. Just go to @Ogundamisi on Twitter. We need to talk about it. We need to bring the issue back into the focus of our ogas at the top, as they say in Nigeria. 5 billion naira, 150 billion naira, 40 billion naira, 32 billion naira, and these are huge sums of money, you know, in a country where you have people, you have at least over half of the population living below $1 a day. What measures should be put in place to prevent this kind of thing in the future, Victoria?
Well, I definitely think that leading by example is key for this sort of solutions for this. I mean, I think governments need to really put definitive action on fraud and taking money. I mean, what does one person need with 50 billion nairas? You know, I think there's a lot of greed, and I think that it's becoming such a big challenge to the country, and I think it needs to be addressed. And I really think it starts from top level.
Okay, Enoma, what is your next project?
Next project, you mean? I have an animation series.
Okay.
It's called The Adventures of Lee and Boo. The first part of it was actually aired on Fusion Television in Atlanta.
Okay.
I have, and that is just going to go on and on, because what it is taking African stories, right, merging them, and putting them in animation and telling their stories out there. Right, a bit like the Tintin, maybe like an African version of Tintin or Asterix and Obelix, where they go to different places and have a lot of fun, but still there's an underlying message. There's an underlying message, basically. Yeah. I am going to be shooting another movie, which talks about Cross River State, basically. It's called My Creektown Adventure. Okay. Again, it's based on a newspaper article, not a newspaper article my father wrote, but a newspaper article that I wrote, which is now going to be turned into a movie. It's going to be like a love story, featuring the Carnival Calabar Queen, as well as the tourist sites in Cross River, and a bit of drama and that.
Okay, so I'm going to bring you back to the dead wood. Now, dead wood, that's such a powerful, dead wood. Why dead wood?
That was my father's title.
He must have really felt, for a man that is almost 80 years, to feel that angry, to describe the situation he and others are in as dead wood. That it just says so many things about who we are as a people, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And that was why he chose that title as a newspaper article. It was simply because of what a former governor said and the callous way in which he described pensioners.
And for the benefit of our viewers, can you just remind us what the governor said about pensioners in Nigeria?
Sorry?
Can you just let us know what the governor did say about pensioners in Nigeria?
He actually said pensioners are deadwood, and that was where my father got the title from.
Wow.
So it just was inevitable that I would use deadwood as the title.
Wow. Victoria, how would you feel? Imagine David Cameron, saying pensioners, or a minister in his cabinet saying pensioners in the UK are deadwood, they need to rely on their children and stop disturbing government. What would be the outcry? What would be the reaction in the British public?
I wouldn't like to think, that is such an insult, especially for the people that have contributed to the economy. To address them as dead wood is such a, it's really disgusting, and it's totally unfair. And I just listening to it is very hurtful for me, because I think, as a country with so much potential, with great people living there, to just palm, people that have contributed so much to the society as just dead wood is it's really bad.
Now, we really need to understand what different kinds of pensions do we have in place, actually.
So in the UK, we've got the state pension, which is contributed through our national insurance, which we all have to pay. Yeah. And I think that's quite a good scheme, but the state pension isn't a lot to live on. So you also have company pensions, which the company will contribute a certain amount depending on how long you've worked with them. And you also have private pensions, so you can contribute your own money to your pension, which I think is one of the best ways to do it, is because you can, especially if you start from young. I mean, it's advisable that people from the age of 25 should start saving for their retirement. So yeah, those are the three types of pensions that we have in this system.
And if we have the misfortune of a Nigerian tsunami wiping out those pensions in the UK, what would happen? Are we protected?
Good question. I mean, I'm a person, I always believe in personally saving anyway, and buying assets and building assets. That's, to me, your best security for retirement, is having assets and having your own sort of, whether it's business, properties and whatnot. A pension is just sort of a pot of money that should be part of a whole picture of assets for retirement. So if that was to happen, unfortunately, you only had a pension, well, you know, you might be left out and not have much money, but that's why it's advisable to have, you know, a few types of different assets to think about when you're retiring.
Yeah, Enoma, I'm going to come to you in Nigeria. With this kind of stuff going on, do you think our people will have any confidence in terms of pension investment? I mean, like people taking up private pension scheme.
I think so. I believe that all hope is not lost.
Okay.
And yes, I do think so, because I find that people are beginning to react to the way, you know, people are being treated. It's a slow reaction, and it's kind of in pockets in different sections, but slowly but surely, I think that there will be some kind of improvement.
And to the best of your knowledge, do you know of anyone that has been jailed, you know, for being involved in pension scam?
No. I know that one or two people were in the hot seat, but I think that whole thing just fizzled out.
Wow. Wow. That's actually amazing that you've got different sets of scams from all over the country, and we can't point to one person that has paid the price. You know, you've just got trials going on forever. Now, in terms of Nigerians living in the UK who want to go back home, and they've contributed to the pension scheme in the UK, Victoria, tell us, how, if they go back to Nigeria, is it that they've lost their pension in the UK? Right.
Well, I looked into this, and from what I understand, don't quote me on this, but from what I understand, depending on what assets they have in Nigeria, depending on how long they've lived here, they can potentially take their pension with them. I know that there's people that do that. When the Jamaicans that came over here in the 1950s, a lot of them retired and went back home, and they still collect their UK pension back home. But they do change the regulations, so it will vary on case to case and circumstances.
So you just have your pension, and then you'll be paid if that is the case in the country you decide to settle in.
Yeah.
And Enoma, in Nigeria, I know you're in an industry where you're a writer and in the film industry. Have you ever heard of anything about like the Nollywood stars creating a pension fund for themselves? You know, just some sort of retirement, because I've had cases where a star, you know, on a classy BMW suddenly falls ill, and then we all have to go on Twitter to raise funds. Do we have schemes for them, you know, like the current stars and the filmmakers in the country?
I'm not aware that sort of thing has started. I know that there's other stuff, but this whole pension thing, I think, is it's just been there, more or less under the carpet.
So, yeah, it's been there under the... You know, one thing with Nigeria...
So maybe something we should start looking to.
Yeah. One thing about our country is that it's quite... You're trying to understand every issue, and then you just can't understand it, even when you're getting close to it. Now, Victoria, you're a keen follower of events in Nigeria, and you're not from Nigeria, I should say. You're British with Jamaican background.
That's right.
Now, have you had cases like this in Jamaica where massive stealing of state pension or pension belonging to the elderly?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm pretty sure it's not to the same value or amount. That, you know, in all sort of government places, even in the UK, there's fraud. People take money that doesn't belong to them, but I think the sheer value of the amount that people are taking in Nigeria is much more vast. In Jamaica, I haven't heard cases, but as I said, it probably does happen, but just not on the scale that it is in Nigeria.
Yeah, Enoma, we're going to let you go, and then we just want to thank you for coming on this show today. One of these days we're going to have you live in the studio because we think your work needs to be promoted and you should be encouraged. And we're hoping that more filmmakers, producers would give us something that is socially relevant to the elderly, the young. There's a case of child abuse in the country, rape in southwest, northern part of the country. And people just, I'm not saying it's not good to make Nollywood movies and witches and witchcraft flying all over the place. But these are important issues. So thank you for coming on Politics with KO. Enoma.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we'll let you go. Now, Victoria, it's, you know what, it's a bit beyond comprehension to actually understand this if you're not Nigerian, to actually feel the impact. You know, we have poverty in many parts of our country, even though we still have a middle class rising and taking their places, buying Escalades and BMW and what have you. But what do you think is the way forward for developing nations? Because one of the things about this pension scam in Nigeria is one of the cases, 32 billion naira, the guy banked most of the money in the UK.
Yeah.
How is it possible for people to just bring in money into the UK and walk into maybe a Barclays bank, I'm not saying that is the case, and put in money there?
I don't think it's that simple in terms of just going into the bank, because the bank would question where the money comes from, and there is a lot of money laundering policies. But if that person wished to, you know, buy assets, then there's other ways they can sort of get the money into the system. I think the biggest challenge that we have, pretty much like I said earlier, is there needs to be a lot more measures in place to kind of, and even from the other neighbouring countries, to make sure that if these amounts of money are getting out of the country, that what are we doing as a global economy to prevent it, and kind of supporting Nigeria in stopping these actions from taking place. But I'm just not entirely sure that it's on the top of the world's agenda to really tackle this. Because
I'm wondering, if I'm, as a Nigerian, if I go into a bank and I want to open an account, once I bring a green passport, I'm told to bring my mother's signature, you know, my father's head, you know, just to confirm I'm the person on the passport. How is it easy for a public office holder to walk in and then bank either through any means and get assets in the UK, but for the hard-working Nigerian to open an account, it's quite difficult? Is it not a case of double standard?
It's politics, you know. People higher up in the hierarchy can do, you know, get so much leverage and powers to do things that we can't do, and that's just how the system is. So there will be sort of advantages and leeways that particular politicians and people in, you know, high places in government can get away with. You know, they are known to have a lot of money and assets. There are ways through even just accountancy practices that they can, you know, swindle the money. And again, you know, sometimes I believe that the economies outside of Nigeria are involved or in it to some degree as well, because, you know, if we get £52 million into the UK economy, you know, they're not going to really, it's going to do more benefits for us than shunning it away. So, you know, I'm not saying that the UK are specifically involved, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are underlyingly aware of where the money's coming from, but not really saying anything because they're benefiting from it.
Wow. Anyway, it's Politics with KO, and we do encourage you to follow us on Twitter at Ogundamisi. We also want you to just stay there. Next week, we didn't let phone calls come in today because I really want this message to get out there for people to know there's a big, huge scam going on in Nigeria. The Deadwood, you know, we just classify a generation of Nigerians from 60 and above as a Deadwood, and we've got some people who just get together to scam them, take money out of their pocket, and that's it. What are we turning ourselves into? We are going to have next week probably a second part of this program, and we're going to let you have your phone calls. You would allow phone calls from the blast, you know, because we want this topic to be repeated. We want people to know about this issue in Nigeria. We want to thank everyone for making this show possible. Victoria Walker, we thank you for coming to Ben TV Studios. We hope to have you here some other time.
Thank you.
Viewers, thank you for watching. My name is Kayode Ogundamisi. I want to thank Tony for his tireless work. Ayo Ajayi, Ngozi Gale, and everyone involved in this production. Good night. It's Ben Television, and you're live from London.
And cities have changed so much within the last 20 to 30 years that they have become almost totally unrecognizable to previous residents. Lagos, for example, at about 1980, was considered to end at Yaba and Surulere. Today, it is a very different story. Indeed, there has been a huge and constant influx of the rural population into the cities, largely due to young people seeking a better life. Those left in the villages are increasingly old people. The cities are increasingly populated by retirees who prefer to continue to live in a familiar environment among old friends than to start again in the villages they have only visited periodically for most of their working lives. Two problems arise for aging city and village dwellers alike. Both problems have to do with movement and interaction with old friends and relations. There must be hundreds, perhaps even thousands, of similar stories, and since the dawn of industrialization, and knowing that the rural-urban drift has occurred also almost everywhere in the world, similar problems must have occurred in the United Kingdom, the United States, and many European countries in the past. And solutions to the problems of caring for the aged must have been found. The United States, the United Kingdom, Commonwealth countries are among those that have attempted to alleviate the sufferings of their old citizens through the payment of pensions and other benefits, tackling the problems of loneliness through the establishment of old people's homes, reducing geriatric difficulties with mobility, providing them with transport allowances and passes, etc. One finds it difficult to say that Nigeria has even one old people's home. The conditions that led to the Western world's attempt to provide care for the aged have existed in Nigeria for decades. There is no reason except the lack of will for Nigeria not to follow the Western world in this laudable effort. Nigerians have proved adept at improvising when government fails to provide, as proved to be the case in Lagos in the early post-independence period. A public latrine flush system located on Iboshere Street against the back wall of King's College was occupied by some old people. One of them would welcome at the entrance young people who did not know the building had been converted, albeit unofficially, to other uses. Our bones might be frail, but our hearts still crave for all forms of human emotion, especially the positive ones. Same for Obiageli and her friend Ezinne, who desired the love and care of family, but their offspring all lived in the cities. Hence, these lonely old women saw their children and grandchildren.
Telephone number, it's 0802-302-0018. And my email address, it's mamleks@yahoo.com. That's MAMLEKS@yahoo.com.
Okay. So if they think they're calling from Ben, you won't charge them consultancy fees.
Well,
I'm joking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've enlightened us so much. We'll be going on a short break, and when we come back, we'll have Honorable Lai with us here. Don't go away.